Wonderful. It's been a great experience. It's sort of I would classify it as sort of the pinnacle of my work so far in my career. Something that I worked on, really for almost like a year and a half. By the time we opened it on Broadway, and it was kind of the process and the project that I've been looking for and wanting, for years. And so it's just been the gift that keeps on giving. So yeah, all positives. If you think about walking into a theater or really any room that, let's say, it has no windows, it's a dark space. It's naturally a dark room. If we turned off all the lights in the theater at the Broadway theater, you would not be able to see anything. It would be a completely dark room. So my job is to take it from being a dark room to a, something that looks like a Broadway show. Um, and as a lighting designer, there's all sorts of responsibilities that I have. Some of them are more basic, like I have to make sure you can see the people, because again, without light, it's a dark room. And then other parts of it are a lot more interesting, in terms of like helping set the mood or emotion or tell the story or time of day or things like that. So lighting covers all of that. Um, and just to dive into like a couple of those, like more specifically, obviously we travel to different locations in the Great Gatsby. Some of them are inside, some of them are outside, some of them are meant to feel grand and opulent, some of them are meant to feel more, run down, like Wilson's gas station. So the lighting helps set the scene for all of those different locations, through color, through angle, through texture. Also, there's a lot of video in the Great Gatsby, and so the lighting helps bridge the connection between the video and the real life scenery and people, and match the color to the video, or the video match the color to what we're doing. Um, it helps tell the audience where to look. Obviously, there's often a lot of people on stage at any given moment, and the lighting has helped drawing in your focus, like a camera lens might, in a movie, whereas the audience always has a wide shot of the stage. So the lighting has to
Mhm.
help show the audience, where to look. And then also the lighting is sometimes, acting as like another instrument in the orchestra. And like you might see in a music video, or in a, if you saw an award show or a concert or something like that, where the lighting is enhancing the music or enhancing the beat or enhancing, different musical styles, whether it's sort of like or a crescendo or a big hit or something. So the lighting is also, playing along with all that and really making the music come alive, visually in front of the audience. So that's like a really, really sort of basic, rundown of kind of what the lighting is doing. And then you asked about like any given day. I mean, it depends on where we are in the process. The tech process, which is really the bulk of what I do in the theater, we're just making the show. We're literally going through the show beat by beat or cue by cue. Every time the lighting changes on stage, that's called a cue. If one light goes down by 5%, that's a cue. And there's hundreds and hundreds of cues in the Great Gatsby. And so we're just working through, and every department is adjusting what they need to do. I'm adjusting the lighting, the choreography is going on stage and moving someone a foot to the left, and the video is being changed slightly, and maybe they're trying a different costume piece here, and we're flying in a piece of scenery, and maybe we're going to have it take 1 second longer. And so we're just literally every single thing you can imagine that we would adjust, we're going through and adjusting it. The music department is changing notes and saying try this note, and the writer is giving a new line to try. And we will just spend each day going through the show. And if we're lucky, maybe we do 10 pages a day, 15 pages a day, whatever we're doing. And for Great Gatsby, we spent about 2 weeks going through the show.
Wow.
Then we started having an audience, and then we had a couple weeks of previews. So we continue to do that work. We refine. We're watching how the audience watches the show and what they respond to and how they react. And do they seem engaged? Do they seem bored? And so we continue to tweak and change. And so we're just always, adjusting until opening night, at which point the show is locked. And so now, for instance, the show that's running, we're no longer making changes. That is a frozen show, and that's what's running. So that's sort of a quick overview. I'm not doing it by myself. I have I have assistants, I have a
Mhm.
programmer, I have electricians, I have follow spot operators. I have a whole team just for my department that's helping me execute my design. And then every department has that as well. So it's a big undertaking. And but that's sort of the day to day. On my team, I have an associate and I have an assistant. The assistant primarily deals with the follow spots. There are three follow spots in our show. And so Colleen, my assistant, she maps out all the follow spots and figure out who's being lit in a particular follow spot at any given moment. Obviously, there's more than three characters, so you always have to choose who gets the follow spots. And we worked very hard to make it seamless so the audience doesn't even notice any of that work. I have a programmer who is physically doing all of the button pushing.
Mhm.
Broadway is all Broadway theaters are union houses, so I don't actually physically touch any of the equipment. I don't hang the lights or focus the lights or program it. There are union stagehands who do all of that, so I have a union programmer, and then I have there's a house electrician who works at the Broadway theater, and he's in charge of the house. I have a production electrician who is in charge of everything related to lighting specific to Great Gatsby. We have a head electrician who is the person who actually runs the show on a nightly basis and is responsible for maintaining it. We have a deck electrician who is also doubles as our pyro technician. Yeah, so that's everyone in my department. And then in the other departments, I'm working obviously a lot with the directing department, who has associate assistant, a choreography department, the scenic and video department I work really closely with, as we are timing out all of our cues and matching our colors and things like that. Obviously, for Gatsby, it was the same person. Paul Depew did the set and the lighting, so working with him on both of those elements and his teams. Um, and working with the music department, sometimes we had a moment where a piece of music had changed between Paper Mill and Broadway, and the light cue sort of no longer worked anymore. So I talked to the music department about adjusting that back. And so I'm talking to a lot of people at any given time, and then it's all organized by our production stage manager and our stage management team, and they are the ones who run the show every night. They call all the cues. They're in charge of everything that happens on stage. They're the ones that really, once a show is open, they're in charge of keeping the show running for as long as it will. I always think about, like, I was recently in Disneyland Paris, and like one of the things I love about theme parks, or particularly Disney, is that a lot of the really the mechanics and the behind the scenes stuff is hidden, right? You walk
Mhm.
into a room and the doors close automatically and the lights dim down, and and something happens in front of you and the ride starts moving, and that there's all these people and computers doing all of it, but it's all invisible. And in theater, it's not quite as invisible, but it's almost as invisible. And I love that. I love the idea that as an audience member, you just sit down in a seat, and there's an army of people all over the theater, about to do something, and everyone has a specific job, but you're not really aware of any of it. The thing just happens right in front of you, like magic, hopefully, and that I love that part of it. I would say the biggest changes that affected me were changes in the writing. We had a couple of new songs that were completely rewritten. So all of the work that we had done, we threw out, and we started from scratch on those new songs. That was really the biggest change for us. It wasn't a huge change. The physical production itself was similar. We added a lot of scenery, we moved things around, but anyone who saw both of them would recognize the production, just a slightly more amped up version for Broadway. So we added additional lighting. The pyrotechnics was all new for Broadway, so there was a lot that went into that, to figuring out how that was all going to happen and happen safely every night. Um, and just adjusting for the theater itself. Obviously, everything on stage, it can be somewhat similar to Paper Mill, because we kind of create our own box that the show lives in. But everything in what we call front of house, which is downstage of the theater in the audience area, that's completely different from theater to theater. So all of the lighting positions at Paper Mill that were front of house are different than the ones on Broadway. So lights that maybe worked in one position, that position no longer existed in the Broadway. So we had to make a lot of changes front of house to figure out how to maintain the look of the show. But there are a lot of shows that transfer that are, for instance, I'm doing a show called A Wonderful World coming up in a couple months at Studio 54. We're starting from scratch on that. The script has changed so much since our out of town tryout, and the set has changed enough that it's actually so different that it just makes sense to just start from square one again. So
Hmm.
that'll be a much bigger change. But for Gatsby, a lot of it transferred, and then we just, as we like to say, we zhuzhed it up a little bit, and we made it even better. I mean, they're two. Obviously, they're very different kinds of shows. I will say that I think both shows, the lighting plays an important role in telling the story. I don't. I'm not one who kind of lets the lighting take a back seat, or has the lighting is very subtle. I like to have very sort of forward facing lighting that with lots of colors, and you notice the lighting, and it really can be a little bit heavy handed. Now that makes more sense in musicals. That wouldn't be a really great approach for a play, but I don't do a ton of plays. I do mainly musicals where the design elements usually play a larger role. Um, I would just say that the biggest thing they have in common are just they're just big shows, and we did them very quickly. Spam-A-Lot, we made the original production in 2 to 3 days, uh,
Wow.
and the original and Gatsby and Paper Mill. I think we teched for like I don't remember, 8 or 9 days or something. So they're just really big shows. So the similarity is that we just have to do them really fast and quickly, and I have to trust my team and my instinct, and just work really really fast, and that's sort of what ties them together. I started out as an actor when I was in high school, and I thought that's what I wanted to do. And then somewhere towards the end of high school, I decided I was more interested in the behind the scenes stuff, and I transitioned into doing a little bit more of that. Even though, but I was still, I kind of had a foot in both worlds. But I decided that for college, I wanted to study lighting. So I did go to Syracuse University and studied lighting design there. You get a little bit of everything, but my focus
Hmm.
was lighting design. Even while at Syracuse, though, I continued to do other things. I would act, I would write, I would direct, I would do stuff like that. But then eventually, by the time I graduated, I really was just focused on lighting design. I mean, there is a self-taught element to it. A lot of lighting, I think you just have to do it, and you have to fail, and you have to see what works and see what doesn't, and develop your own style and your own bag of tricks. But it is good to have a foundational education, and I did have that. But I only went to undergrad, no grad. So after the 4 years at Syracuse, everything else and I would say that, I mean, I guess it's hard to put a number on it, but I would say like the majority of the makeup of me as a current designer is probably not from my time in school. That really was just laying the most kind of basic foundational level, and the mechanics of how lighting works. It's really been the what now 19 years of just doing it since graduation, where I really feel like I've learned how to be a designer. It's just one of those things you just have to
Yeah.
do. Gatsby is the show, really. It's the one that I've spent the most time on. It's the one that I'm the most proud of. It's the most high profile. It really goes well with my style. Also, it was a show that Paul Dupuis, again, the scenic and projection designer, we have been working together for over a decade, developing a style, developing an approach to these shows, and this was really the culmination of the years and years of working with him. We finally got to put it on a big stage. I'm coming to you live actually from Pittsfield, Massachusetts, where tonight we open a show called Next to Normal here at Barrington Stage Company. And that'll I don't actually know how long that runs, but it probably runs for a couple weeks up here. And then Great Gatsby continues to run on Broadway. And I have a show called A Wonderful World, which is the Louis Armstrong musical, which will start previews on Broadway in October. So people can check that out at Studio 54. And then we'll see there's some stuff in the hopper for next year. The Spam-A-Lot is going to go out on tour next fall.